Hello everyone. In this video you're going to see how I quickly painted up my Warcry Catacombs terrain, and I hope this is helpful to you to get some painted terrain on the table for your games in the underworld. I started off by priming everything black, and then we're going to do a series of overbrushing and dry brushing. This is a dark umber from Pro Acryl, but any brown will work, dark brown. Kind of going heavy, kind of being heavy-handed on this. I don't want a total coverage on this. I just want fair coverage. I want some of the black primer to show through. This part is pretty elementary. I have it sped up about 3 times as there's, I believe, 5 pieces of terrain I painted here. But what we're going to be doing is just gradually brightening the color, trying to get that sandy brown, stone color for the most part. And then we have some other details. Put a little more paint on a piece of cardboard. I use this. You don't want your paint to be wet. That's why I don't put it on a wet palette. You want it to be kind of tacky or sticky. So I just use cardboard. I always have some laying around, and it also works real well for working the paint into the bristles and kind of removing some of it. A lot of people use paper towels, which is good, but then I have all these paper towels around, so I just use a piece of cardboard over and over again. So again, kind of heavy-handed on this. For the columns that have like that smooth surface, I kind of go back and forth as opposed to up and down from if it's a column, so I'm going left to right on it. So if I do leave any brush marks, it kind of creates a little texture on it. You could also just use both like a 90-degree, up and down and left and right, kind of creating some crosshatch and give some more texture. So I'm just going to lighten up. This is a light umber. You can see just a lighter brown, working that into the brush. Still pretty much an overbrush on this. Just a touch lighter. You're still going to see some of the black primer show through, but so you're going to have some of the darker umber, and you're just going to see this progression as we lighten up. Also, for me, on these terrain pieces in particular, there's a lot of rocks around the columns, and I think I went lighter on that, so kind of like another step towards the end, just to differentiate the stonework from in the columns from the actual rocks and stuff on the ground. And again, just trying to go through this little quick and just we want to have painted terrain in such a great box set. I haven't played Catacombs yet, the Catacombs rule set, but I have enjoyed the core rules and lots of different games of Warcry, I guess proper, or the first the core rules with several different war bands. I'll be painting up some more. I have the 2 war bands that came in the Catacomb box to go through, the Scions of the Flame and the Daughters of Cain ones. Alright, so now we have this dark golden umber, or ochre yellow. You'll see we start seeing trying to introduce some more yellow into it with this ochre, so we're going to start seeing a bit more of the pop in the details. Again, I'm lightening my brush, the pressure of the brush strokes more and more, the lighter the color, just so we can see the details and still have all that dark undercoat come through. I think this is the last color that I use that I don't mix the previous one. I never, through this whole process, I don't believe I ever rinse out my brush. Having the previous colors in there is fine. So now we're going with this golden yellow here, or golden ochre. And yeah, this one I do kind of mix, you know, a little bit of the darker one in there. There we go. You know, this isn't an exact science, so it doesn't have to be the same every time I mix it. You know, things in nature have that variation in color and tones and stuff, so it just kind of makes it look, you know, I don't know, more realistic, or, you know, kind of stands out a little more. On some of these details, I believe I start concentrating more on a top-down highlight on this, because we are getting fairly bright, and we'll go with just the plain yellow here after we go through all the pieces here. While I'm doing this, I do plan on making more videos, probably focusing more on Age of Sigmar painting projects that I have, personal projects. I do commission work. I do paint a lot of 40K stuff, but my passion in playing and painting as well is with Age of Sigmar, and I want to make some videos on that. I enjoy painting, and so I'm going to work on some producing some videos and some contents that you can watch as you're painting your armies and your war bands and terrain and such. All right, last couple of pieces here. Got the crypt that got shattered by a fallen column here in the catacombs. A lot of fun here. So yeah, just finishing up this. I think the whole project for me was, I think it was about 2 hours, you know, after building the, you know, putting a few pieces, clipping off the sprues, but just the actual painting part went pretty quick. Of course, once we apply a wash, that does take a little bit of time. A little more of the golden ochre there. I think this is, yeah, so this is just straight yellow, kind of starting out on those stones to see how much was going to come off the brush. Fairly light-handed on this, just wanting the most uppermost raised details of the terrain. Still going side to side on this column to give it a little texture of sorts down there. So in the comments, hey, I'd appreciate it if you tell me any painting techniques you use for your terrain or scattered terrain, and we can all learn from one another. I watch a ton of YouTube videos. That's where I started painting, by watching Sarastro's painting of Imperial Assault, and that's where I learned dry brushing Chewbacca and edge highlighting and stuff like that. So we can all learn from each other. I'm going to finish up here on the last few pieces. Go on. Also, what faction, if you play Warcry or Age of Sigmar, what factions and armies are you do you have or are you working on? Just so that we can get a bit of a dialogue and conversation going in the comments. All right. So now we're going to apply a wash, and as you see there, one of my little tips is I just take some blue tacks and stick that to the table. That way it doesn't spill over. So Agrax Earthshade is a dark brown wash, and I'm just liberally going over all the areas that we painted. You may want to, I mean, our last dry brush was fairly light, but you kind of want the paint to set in a little bit. I mean, even just waiting 5 minutes. Acrylic paint is quick to dry. I always have a fan going in my studio where I paint, so there's always air circulating around, so it does help dry this paint a little quicker. So we're just going to blow through this fairly quick. Again, whenever applying wash, you know, just an overall wash, just the basic concepts of you don't want the wash to just pull up in the recesses too much. I mean, you do want it to pull up some. That's the purpose of it, to give a bit of a outline in between, like the rocks here, or right below that skull thing, the little pointy metal part. You know, you kind of want to see a dark line there where some dirt or stuff would have built up, and it just gives our eye, you know, some more definite start and stop points on the detail, and as well as on the smoother areas, it does give us a little bit of tonal change, tonal variation in this. So we're just going to quickly go over all these pieces. Just straight, again, just straight from the pot. I've always used Games Workshop washes. I've made my own for larger terrain pieces. I do make my own wash just because I'm going to use, you know, it'd take, you know, 2 or 3 bottles of this, and at I think it's like $7 US. Yeah, I'll just make my own, less expensive. So after the wash dries completely, I'm going back. I'm mixing a little bit of the yellow ochre, the golden ochre, and the light brown color. I didn't want to go all the way bright with this. I wanted to check it out, and I just hit a few spots, not overall, just the top. A top-down highlight is what I'm looking for here. So yeah, I'm just quickly going over these pieces, the stones, edges, such. So we'll cruise through this. If there's any Age of Sigmar specific questions about painting that you may have, like how can you paint this, or Underworld or Warcry, anything at all, you know, let me know either in the comments. You can contact me on my Facebook page, Smoothblend Studio, as well as Instagram as well. So now we want to paint skulls. We're in the grim dark fantasy world, so lots of skulls. I think I sped this up as well, like 3 times, just because we all know how to paint skulls. Just, you know, taking care not to try to get any excess, you know, slop or you know, paint on the other areas. So I'm just using a regular ivory. I know Games Workshop has a Screaming Skull or Ushabti Bone, but just you want a light color. We'll be going over all these with a sepia wash as well. There's quite a few skulls and bones in here as well. So we'll probably just cut to that. All right, so now we're going to paint the broken bits of pottery and just little objects, glass, pottery, ceramic stuff that we have there. So I just picked 2 colors. I didn't want to go overboard because it's not a focal point of the terrain piece, so I just picked 2 colors, as you can see on my wet palette there, like a burnt sienna and a jade color. So I just kind of go through each piece and, you know, try to even it out, I guess. You know, if there's 2 pieces, 1 of each color, if there's an odd number, you know, just keep it even. Again, you want this to be a fun, you know, or a little added piece. You don't want it to be a distraction in any way. So just go through here, picking out those, you know, just being careful. Again, using a large brush. I think the brush that I'm using there, look at it, I think that's like a size 4 bomb wick igniter. Great brush. Just you know, even though we're painting miniatures, we don't need super small brushes for a lot of things. I find myself often using too small of a brush when I need to be using a larger one. we use acrylic paint, and the paint dries out quick, so having a larger brush, we can keep moist bristles and such, so that's going to be helpful to us here. So now we just switch over and just get the other half of these things, the pieces of pottery, jars and stuff. So go through there and just kind of, I didn't want anything bright. We are in the catacombs, so just, for me, using the darker kind of muted colors as well. Something else, I don't believe it showed, I think I cut it out when I was painting the skeletons. The primer I used was it had a little bit of a sheen to it, maybe satin or whatever, and my paint just wasn't sticking completely to it, so it beat up. So I did have to go through, and it wasn't to the point that I needed to break out a brush on primer, but I did go over it a couple of times. I say a couple, 3 or 4 times, just to make sure it gets on there. Again, it's terrain, and you could just kind of blow that off and say whatever, but you know what, sometimes you get those little details and just a little better. Oh, there we go. There was some poor warrior's femur or tibia that I forgot. Just touching up a few more pieces there. There's always skulls and pieces to get. So we'll finish up the last little bit. Again, wet palettes. If you don't have one, you can just do a search on YouTube or whatever. And there's a lot of people out there talking about it. If you have a specific question that you want to ask me, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. So again, just putting that blue tack at the bottom so that I don't knock over. And I'm just going to go over all these skulls and such. And I'll probably, the skulls, the pottery, with that, we're going to be putting a highlight on all these. So if you want to go with more of a dark brown, like an Agrax earth shade or whatever, again, I'm just going to do the bones and the pottery all with the same color. Just overall, not worried about getting any on the side or whatever. You can do this relatively quick because it is a dark area, dark colors, and it's a dingy thing. So we can just kind of get in there and knock that out. All right, so now we're going to go back and just highlight the skulls and the pottery, and I'm just going just real simple, hitting the high parts of the skull, just to create a little bit of contrast between the highest parts of the bones and then of course the dark recesses that they're surrounded. So we'll go through here, lots of bones, same technique, and again, for my first pass at terrain here, or these pieces of terrain, I'm just going to hit it once. One of the things that I often do is I get projects, and in this case this terrain project, I try to get it to, we'll say 90%, which is what this video is going to show you. But if I know I'm going to be playing a campaign, or even just like, okay, I'm going to be playing tonight, I'll grab one or all, some of the terrain and try to, maybe touch up something or put another highlight, or at least look at it and see if anything jumps out at me as, that's kind of plain or boring or whatever, and just give a 15 minutes attention to the terrain, and you can kind of build up better looking pieces. And I do that with my models as well. I try to get everything painted and play with them, and then go back and start working on the fine details and stuff. So it encourages me to can always work on my pieces and getting them better. All right. So we're going to go through here. Got this poor skeleton guy, and then we're going to get some highlights on him. Now, as far as highlighting the pottery, all I did was take that base color, that jade, and I added a little bit of the ivory that I have in there just to create a lighter color. Again, just using the paint that I have there. Just trying to make a not necessarily quick, but an efficient paint job. Speed, that can come from various different ways. It can just come from all the repetitions, and we don't always get all the repetitions we want, but our setup, having the palette, if I had my wet palette on the left side of my workspace, that would be just really inefficient and take longer. So I just try to get my color set up that I know I'm going to use. Doesn't mean I won't have to stop, put down the brush, and get other colors, but I kind of know what I'm going to use and go from there. So now we're moving on to that red brownish pottery. Again, just added a little bit of ivory into there. I didn't want it to get too pink looking, but got that, and we'll just go ahead and just quickly touch all these these pieces, and then we'll move on to the next one. What do we got here? One more piece. And again, this highlight may be something you come back to, you don't even put these highlights on until you play the game. All right, now we're going to we got some metallics here for the ornaments on there. So this is just I think this was a gunmetal. It's either just silver or gunmetal metallic. We're going to do that. We're going to end up putting a brown wash or dark wash on these. So just whatever type of metallic you like to use. I did switch paintbrushes to a synthetic bristle brush. I think since I bought these igniters, these the red handled brushes I was using before, I think I've gone without using, putting any metallic paint on that, which, metallic paints, kind of can be harsh on your brushes. And so just kind of use the synthetic ones more. Try to keep my natural hair brushes for just regular acrylic paints. Hey, and for years I used natural, metallic paints, or used my natural hair brushes with metallic paints because that's what I had. And you know what? I cleaned them, I've soaked them, I've treated them, and I look under with the other day I had my magnifying visor on, painting some 6mm stuff, and I could still see metallic flakes in there. All right, so we're going to put this dark wash over all the metallics, being a little careful, not too careful. I do want not just the metallics, I'm a little bit off frame here, not just the metallics to get the wash, but the areas around it, so that it kind of has that dark or reinforce the dark area where dirt or shadow would build up in that area. Again, you have the washout, and you can just be real quick about it. So now I'm going to dry brush the bronze, and I just got a silver. I think I went a little too heavy on this one. I could always just repaint it. This one turned out a little better. I got a little lazy there. And what am I doing here? I got this light blue. Oh, I'm doing painting the crypt. So it's like black stone, probably not marble, but I'm just kind of creating the illusion or the image of dark dungeon lighting, kind of coming on to or falling onto this dark stone crypt thing. So we'll go through this. I think there's two crypts and or coffin, two lids, and then there's that rounded stone that we're going to hit. So we'll knock out these pieces. Again, the old trusty piece of cardboard. Yeah. Again, I just kind of looked at the photo in the Catacombs rule book to have a little idea. Again, these are game pieces. These are going to be on the table and just kind of add to the fun and excitement that we have. I think this was one last piece here. Again, a lighter, I don't know, medium or light dry brush. I'm usually impatient, and I don't build it up as slowly as I should, and I could probably have a better effect. But again, for terrain, I'm just kind of knocking these things out, and I wanted to just show a quick and easy, fun way. What do we got now? Okay, this one last coffin we got here, and we'll move on. And I had to go back and paint all these skulls because there's always more skulls. I think since all I did to this piece was prime it black and then that light blue-gray dry brush, I think that's why I missed out on all these skulls, but I didn't want to shortchange anybody there. I did go back and put a sepia wash on there and highlight those skulls, and that finished up the terrain there. And I hope this video helped you out. If you have any questions, put it down in the comments, and I will get back to you. And I hope you have a great time painting and playing all your different games.